I was thinking this morning about the individual stories we looked at of a campaign promise made by Donald and the campaign breaking of the promise in the president elect phase from Donald. And we talked anecdotally about the immediate backtracking on the Affordable Care Act, for example, and liking some of those provisions. And I started thinking to myself, this is really racking up to be quite a list of campaign promises that he has already backtracked or mitigated in some way or moderated on. So I thought, well, let's look at the actual number that we're dealing with here. And indeed, in the 9 days since the election of Donald as president-elect of the United States, he has already backtracked to some degree on 8 campaign promises. These were not small promises. These were major promises that the Trumpists, I'm told I shouldn't use trumpeter because it's offensive to classical musicians and jazz musicians. The Trumpists voted for Trump in great part because of these promises. Look at this list that he has already said or implied directly or through his surrogates that he is not going to be doing. Jailing Hillary Clinton. I mean, this was ridiculous to begin with. It was a major campaign discussion. Lock her up at the debate. I'm going to put you in jail, etc. Well, it turns out when asked about it after the election, he hasn't thought about it much and he has other priorities. So that one, we can basically cross it off the list. The Mexico wall. We will build it and they will pay. Well, Trump advisor Newt Gingrich now doubts whether it will be pursued at all. And if it is, it will likely be some fencing on some part of the border that Mexico will absolutely not pay for. Number 3, banning Muslims. Well, we now have maybe Muslim registration, although I doubt that will happen, and we'll talk about that later. But the Muslim ban is dead. It was one of the initial promises that many of the Trumpists really liked. Taxing China. I'm going to talk in the next few shows in more detail about this, but senior policy advisor Wilbur Ross has already retreated on this, saying, oh, Trump's been misquoted about the whole big tax on China. That's not actually what he ever said, and it's not what he intends. Well, he was pretty clear about it during the campaign. That one is not going to be happening. The Iran nuclear deal, number 5, you'll remember Trump said during the campaign he would rip it up. Well, it turns out that advisor Walid Fares said he will review the agreement. Well, hold on a second. Ripping it up to reviewing the agreement, that's a pretty big backtrack, I would say. The other countries will pay for their own defense line from his campaign. Trump appeared to be saying he could just pull the U.S. out of backing of a number of different alliances, including one involving South Korea, if he didn't feel that other countries were paying enough for their defense. In a recent phone call with the South Korean president's office, they said, oh, actually, no, we spoke to Trump and he's going to continue defending South Korea under the existing security alliance. Not a major issue for a lot of Trumpists, but yet another campaign promise for Trump. Number 7, bringing back waterboarding. Said during the campaign that he would bring back waterboarding in spite of the fact that the practice was made illegal after being used during the George W. Bush era. Well, it turns out that now that is off the list as well. These are not, these are sort of generalities. When he meant bring back waterboarding, what he meant was not bring back waterboarding. And then number 8, as I mentioned at the beginning of the segment, scrapping Obamacare. He said it would be gone. It's a disaster. And after meeting with President Obama, he said he now likes many of the provisions very much and will be keeping them. Not on this list, which we can, it's not on the list because it hasn't sort of yet been really spoken about more officially, but already the tax cuts that Trump promised, if they happen, are going to be smaller than what he promised, other than the fact that there is going to be a tax increase for the 10% tax bracket that will go to 12%. What do you think about this, Pat? I mean, these are positions he took. Wow, as I almost knocked my mic over because this is just so crazy. These are positions he took, and people voted for him because of these positions. And it's like, poof, they're just gone now.
And what was his whole resounding message on the campaign trail? That politicians are all talk, no action. Yeah. They make all these promises, and then when they get into office, they don't keep them. He wanted to drain the swamp in Washington, and yet his whole transition team is full of career politicians and lobbyists.
The lobbyist part, I read that Pence today said, let's get at least some of the lobbyists off of the transition team, but there's still many left. And I don't know, it's just all such a train wreck, and all of the promises are coming undone. What exactly is Trump going to do? Certainly not what he promised the Trumpists that he would do, if they even cared what his policy proposals were. And many didn't. Many said, I just like the idea of Trump. It wasn't ever about policy.
Right. It seems like he defrauded his voters as if they were students at Trump University.
Yeah. Very nice. I like that, Pat. Good. Jot that one down. We want to use that one again for sure.
I shall.